Hey, I'm Danielle, a techie serial entrepreneur.
I'm Cicely, a health tech nurse.
I'm Priscilla, and I'm an award-winning creative.
Welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast, a virtual safe space for women and minorities in the tech and creative industries. Together, we're that tribe. Hey, y'all. Hey, it's real. Y'all, my voice, it's alive. It has come up from the underground. It has been rectified in some holy spiritual way, because your girl's voice was gone yesterday. But today, just for y'all, welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cicely.
And I'm Priscilla.
Okay, so we actually kind of have these real cool intros, and we'll just do this another time. But I wanted to welcome y'all because it is the last couple of last week of March.
Yes.
Last Women's History Month. Rah rah rah. We're doing things. Mm-hmm. Are we still kicking? So we're doing I've been doing a lot of stuff around Women's History Month on the back end, but I've been really kind of not as loud publicly about it as I was for Black History Month. If y'all saw on my feed, Black History Month, I was doing a lot. And this month I kind of sat back for a little bit. And I might talk about that a little bit more as we talk about this topic of Yaya and sisterhood. So before we get into that, MTG is celebrating. We're celebrating our 2025 nomination for the Women's Podcasting Awards. Woo woo. That's going down. Voting will open on May 1st. But again, More Than Graphics. We're a multi-award nominated podcast. We're ranked by Listen Notes or Listen Score as a top 10% podcast from more than 3 million registered podcasts. So we're the 10%. We're in that little wow. So it's really cool that, we're in the space and we're holding it out for y'all. Wherever you are listening from, let us know. If you're in Kentucky, if you're in a different state, if you're in a different country, let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you all. But we just recently recorded and released our episode of Yaya, right? Featuring creative artisan and engineer Francesca Escoto. And that was such a great episode. Was that not? I'm still kind of wow by that, because there's a lot of gems shared. So if you haven't checked that out, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to podcasts, so you can just hear the wealth of insights from our guests, specifically from Francesca. Hey, girl, hey. So again, we encourage our viewers to comment, ask questions, share experiences as we kind of go about this topic of Yaya. And so today, going into visualizing Yaya, what does that look like? And I like the fact that we're going to be tackling this from both a med perspective, but also holistically as women perspective in our perspective roles, if you will. So our first kind of Q&A question that we have, because I'm totally on that, is, as designers and creatives work in tech and women's care, how can we visually represent the unique bonds of Yaya sisterhood within these often challenging fields, right? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let ladies, you pick up the ball. Go. Football. Go for it.
I'm not sporty, so Cicely, go first.
Fine. So I would say in the women's care health tech space, one of the ways, specifically in women's care, is to kind of have that visual representation, literally in your office. So one of the things is I've seen kind of pop up around our town, in Lexington, Kentucky specifically. There's more boutique gynecology offices now. So they're doing wellness, women's wellness specifically, hormones and rejuvenation and facials and massages and things like that. But while you get your GYN care too. So those offices are just really pretty. They're aesthetically pleasing. They have those really pretty kind of backdrops where you can take pictures, if you want to share to social media, what do you call them? I can't think. I know, I can see it in my head right now. The green backdrops where you can take.
Oh yeah, the floral backdrops and all
exactly.
that. Yeah.
So I've seen it in that way, in the more boutique setting. But then just in general, in healthcare settings, especially when you're tailoring it towards women and children and families, on the OBGYN side, so the childbearing side, you're seeing images of mothers, you're seeing paintings of children, you're seeing these beautiful images of pregnant bellies and other representations of motherhood. Sometimes I've seen in offices, they have pictures of loss as well, because, motherhood can be a full spectrum sort of journey. You don't necessarily always have a live child, even if you are a mother. So I've seen offices represent and respect that as well. But really, like, just like I said, I see that kind of sisterhood and like that bonding kind of visually represented. I can't talk today. My God, I'm losing it. Visually represented in just kind of every facet of like the women's health kind of trajectory. Like, you know, we're born and then we go through our childbearing year. We have our period. We go through our childbearing years. Then our period is over. And a lot of times they think healthcare stops there, but then we have menopause, and there's like a special set of issues that comes with that. Looking forward to that. And then a lot of people don't talk about that part as well. So from what I see on the healthcare side is that it's not just focusing on what most people would think is like, you know, the childbearing, sexual health, reproductive years. They're focusing on that whole kind of continuum where you start into womanhood through your period, and then, you know, womanhood continues throughout menopause and even after that as well.
Go for it, Priscilla.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I know I'm mute. I okay. Do that. Partially is because I do it to save myself some time, buying some time. But like for creatives, like Danielle and myself, we are visual. That's the only way that, you know, we can't get around that. But, you know, because we're on digital, I know like a lot of it is with social. And I know like for Danielle, she is super good at posting anything that, I mean, you look at anything that's Octane or anything, you can tell, you can already feel it because you're actually showing, you know, the different bonds that we have. And I think it would be it's really nice how I've noticed like a lot of, I don't really pay attention to what the guys are doing, but what we're doing is, you know, we share each other's things. Like I see all the time, like, oh, like in stories or in, you know, or even just regular posts, like sometimes we'll feature either it's a client or another one that's somebody else, a colleague or something. And so I think it's kind of easier, you know, as far as in our field, just because there's more reach. So, but, you know, I think like also having different events where, you know, they're bonding. I actually thinking about signing up for to have a chapter here in Columbus for something, but I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to read more about it before I do that. But, you know, that's another, you know, representation, just getting the word out and talking. And I mean, I don't think you can get away anywhere without seeing some sort of feminine or female, you know, like connection. I mean, I just think it's kind of synonymous, right? Mute.
Don't mind me. Yeah, I muted on purpose because I was coughing on my lip. But I agree with you. I do feel like when we talk about Yaya sisterhood, first off, every time I think of Yaya at this point, it's always B. So I'm just defaultly going to Beyonce Yaya, like the song, like for real. I'm doing all the dances. Okay, so from there, I am always thinking about that level of sisterhood. And as you mentioned before, what does that visually look like? It looks like social shares, right? It looks like supporting and showing up for each other. It also looks like these beautiful spaces that are mentally ambient and poised for us, right? Not poised for everybody else, but poised for us. And I really like that both sides of that spectrum, whether you're in the med field or you're in the creative field, and I feel like in business, the way that women have shown up for each other, especially over this past years, especially currently under this administration, women have to be super connected. And that also kind of leads me back to that feeling of what I was feeling for Women's History Month this month. I was talking about how, you know, for Black History Month, we were loud, in charge, boom, no matter what government flag or whatever says that we can't, we are, you know, that kind of feel. But then for Women's History Month, I stepped back for a minute and I was like, what does sisterhood really look like? There's a lot of women who had a lot of effect on how our political climate was going to be. And I felt personally ignored in a lot of areas where we kept saying women should do, or we're doing this together. And then when it came to actually showing that proof, poof, nothing, silence. What am I celebrating? Like that was the question that I am like constantly revisiting myself as we talk about sisterhood and Yaya. Not everybody is for us. And that's also something that we have to take into consideration when we think about creating communities and intimate spaces for each other. Any thoughts on that, ladies?
I had a thought. I don't know if it just what it stemmed was is, I'm thinking about I don't think as, I mean, I guess as some women, we're not entirely loud about stuff, right? And we sit back and we ingest everything and digest and everything. And, even just thinking about as women, as mothers, we always put ourselves last. So it's almost like us not, some people not speaking out about it. It's kind of like it's not entirely part of our make. And, I mean,
So true.
I know, like, for me, it's like that's kind of where I'm getting into now, where I want to be, like, with my business is more of, you know, uh, it is an internal thing, because if you don't feel that loud and proud about yourself, then how are we expecting us to feel that way and speak that way about others? Although I know I will, till I'm blue in the face, talk really great about Danielle and Cicely and stuff, but then if I have to talk about myself, so I think that's something that we have to, it's almost like a realization that it's something that we've got to work on. And it may not be that people don't, women are not feeling, it's not that they don't feel it. It's the fact it's the voice. It's not
Yeah.
being spoken out enough. And I mean, I think that's really kind of where we're getting at, where we need to be more as far as making people feel more confident and comfortable in speaking out loud. And I think just because of how things are kind of are, it's really easy. It's really easy for us to be like, oh, like at first you think, oh yeah, I could do this. But then when you go out there and everybody's looking at you, and you might feel like you're alone, then you can't really speak so much. So, I mean, it's just a matter of, I think the sisterhood will help it. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of maybe not even necessarily like, hey, sisterhood, you can speak it and push them forward. It's more, hey, let me help you, let's speak on what is right for you. And then, maybe not everybody wants to speak for everybody, but at
Yeah.
least speak for something.
Yes. Yeah, I'm totally down with that. I feel that. Cicely, you got any extra thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with both of the perspectives. And what's really funny is I love how we all come together and we always sometimes we have the three differing perspectives. Mine has been like for Women's History Month, for me, it was focused on rest. So I feel like a lot of time we focus on like, and of course we want to notice and applaud the achievements that women have done. But being a woman's hard work. Like, I just want to not. I just want
Yes.
to rest. And I feel just like Priscilla said, like, a lot of times either we don't get our voices heard, or like we're in the throes of motherhood or whatever, our job, our our what am I trying to say? Our dedication or our role in the family. So even if you're not a mother, you could be a sister or a caretaker,
Yes.
or daughter, whatever. It's so much. Like, I'm okay to just rest. I like rest.
Mm-hmm.
Me and rest are BFFs now. Rest is me. I am rest. She is her.
Good
I am
on you
her.
too.
It is beautiful. And so coming off the heels of Black History Month, I thought about that too, that like in the intersection of, being one thing and then also being something else, I think most of the time I know that I'm a woman. Clearly, I know that, I identify as a woman, as a female, but I feel like my Blackness comes first, which is kind of weird. So I don't know if like other people feel that way, like people who are of the non-white diaspora. I don't know if they feel that way or not, but yes, I'm a woman. I obviously know these things. I feel that way. I identify that way, but the Blackness for me comes first. So some of those issues are kind of more prevalent to me. But then, like I said, when it comes to being a woman, and a Black woman especially, and, mentioning political climate, or just, in this time of my life, I just want to rest. That is all I want to do. I want a softer life. I want to rest.
I love this. Okay, so I just took a whole bunch of gems from this. I love that. I feel like for me, rest is also part of resistance. And so I feel like that's what I'm locked into in a lot of areas for me. But I also love the fact that, what do we choose first? Do we choose our femininity, the intersectionality of race and gender? Where are we on that spectrum? And different strokes for different folks. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just a matter of like what your personal preference is and how you want to be seen, how you identify. And so I love that we all three of us had different angles from that. Woo, go us. Goosebumps. I got those. All right. So I kind of want to move on down to like narrative and connection because I do feel like that's kind of where this conversation is going anyway. So we talk about this spirit of Yaya Sisterhood and how it fosters creative collaboration and mentorship for opportunities in for women in tech and for women going into women's care, like things along those lines. How can that spirit be a good collaboration ground? And for me, I think I can clearly see how I've been able to bring more people together at tables, right? Just using this example, using our podcast as an example, right? Like we've had more conversations with more women, and believe it or not, I've had conversations with men too, in
Mhm.
regards to how do we foster collaboration amongst together? How can we work in a more unified way? And so just asking the questions, I think, is the most steadfast way that we can foster that type of collaboration. And then mentorship opportunities, I feel like that's huge because one person can't maybe one person wants to get ahead but doesn't know where to start. Having that type of mentality that you need to lean on the wisdom of others is very helpful. So yeah, y'all thoughts on that?
Ooh. Let's say I'm thinking too, Priscilla.
I guess
Oh, I got
I agree. You know, I agree with you, Danielle. And I guess I go kind of because I'm looking at the words and I'm trying to go okay, but to me when I read it, I'm like, but isn't it this obvious? In the spirit of like obvious, like I feel like women we're naturally, you know, collaborative. And we have to be creative because we just that's how we do. We think about all the different, you know, problem solvers and stuff. And mentorships, I feel as if it's I feel like we're always in that um, you know, nurturing maternal thing. So we're just by nature, I guess this one's hard for me to answer because I feel like naturally as a woman, I'm like, I think I just naturally collaborate because it's like connection. And then the mentorship, I'm like, I feel like we're always teaching each other, whether or not in a, you know, a legit mentorship way, you know, or even just in a conversation with a friend. But, you know, I think the spirit of it is the with collaboration and mentorship, there's connection. And to me, I mean, I think that's like for me, I think the biggest descriptive of, you know, the sisterhood is a connection and being able to be on that level because you can't, in order to collaborate with somebody or in order to mentorship, you have to have some level of similarity somewhere.
Mhm.
And and that's where the connection comes in from.
I dig that. So I think what I'm thinking is more of an aerial perspective where we're
Mhm.
thinking about our young, 18, 20 some odd year old, our younger people, our younger generation of folks who are looking for those opportunities, but you have not yet found them or are eager to learn more, but don't know kind of those building blocks to start. Many of them have maybe did a couple projects in high school, right? They're fresh out of high school. They're going into college, pursuing their dreams, but they don't have those stepping blocks in place yet. So I'm thinking about that type of like mentorship opportunity where we're able to invest generational wealth right into each other versus just the mentorship of ourselves, which is totally true. We do that too, right? Like we do that
Mhm.
even now. But I think the greater step I'm thinking of is like when we talk about fostering collaboration, what building blocks can we pass on to the future generations that they can continue to build and they can continue to grow in a way that fosters again creativity, that fosters mentorship, that fosters that Yaya sisterhood feeling that we want. Because we feel it now, right? Like where
Yeah.
most of us are in a certain age group where we're kind of like, okay, we understand that community aspect. But for younger people, they have not necessarily built those blocks yet, or they're trying to foster that for themselves. So yeah, that's what I was thinking of, like that type of spirit, passing that down.
And piggybacking off of what Priscilla said, she just made me think of something like really profound, something that I think about like on a regular basis. When you were talking about like just kind of the feminine spirit or the feminine energy leans toward collaboration, I very much agree with that. Like there's like always a joke going around where, like someone's like, oh my gosh, girl, that's such a pretty dress, or I love your pants. And the girl's like, it's got pockets, or I got it on sale at TJ Maxx. And I just think that's so funny. So it's not about not being able to take a compliment, but I think a lot of women feel naturally like they just want to share with like wisdom and resources with people. And I realize that's kind of the point I'm at in life. So I'm not necessarily ready to be a mentor yet because I feel like there's still room to grow in that aspect. But I do feel that I'm in the aspect of where I can help like, you know, the girls younger than me who are just getting into their career. So I have the wisdom to give them as well as information about resources. So I feel that's an important place to be. 10 years ago, I wasn't there. 20 years ago, definitely wasn't there. But today, I definitely feel like now I can look back and say, hey, based on my personal experience, based on the things I now know with this noggin and all these years of experience, like I can now impart that on someone else, or I can share that with as many people, because it's all about that collaboration. And it's like, you know, the each one teach one. I want to not only tell you, but I want you to tell your friends and tell their friends, because I want everyone to know, like, I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't want secrets to be kept. I want everyone who can use good information or resources to share that information and, you know, give it to someone else as well. So I love that you mentioned that collaboration piece as well. So I think that is a big part of sisterhood. It's not just, okay, like we can sit here and sing songs and talk about good things or bad things. It's that we're sharing with each other, sharing resources, sharing information. And basically, as women, we just like to make lives easier. Like, why are we doing anything to make our lives harder?
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
Well, you know, you guys are talking about like for the younger. Okay, so this is where Grandma Moses is going to come in. You know, there are like, you know, there's something to be said about when we get to a certain place in our life, like maybe we've had children and then we're almost like starting over again. So I think it's not just the younger generation or whatever, it's people that whatever, if you're going into a new space or a new place of your life, because think about like whether or not, if there's a life change of some sort, because like when you're like, if you're going to be a single mom, you're in a whole entire thing. And so that will kind of make you think, if you end up, you know, leaving the job force or going back into the job force. So it's not necessarily, after listening to you guys talking about, I'm thinking it's more than just for leaving that behind, because there are people that are a little bit older that they're re-entering in a world that's so much different than what it was when they were younger. So it's like, so it goes, I think it goes kind of matrixy all over the place. Did you like how I did that?
I love it. You went up and out.
But yes, I agree with you. Like being in a new life space can be just the same as being brand new, right? Like can be the same as being the new kid on the block or being a new grad. It can be the exact same thing. If you're encountering something you've never encountered before. I'm someone who has a teenager and 10-month-old twins. Like, what is that? Never encountered that before. So that's a very different realm of life. So I very much agree with that. Or like you said, newly single parents, people just re-entering the job force. Those are all new experiences that definitely could use collaboration and mentorship as well.
Yeah.
I love it. And shout out to ADP List. Hey y'all, I'm a mentor with ADP List. I mentor. And so it's really cool I love this because I feel like this is the stuff that I'm hoping. I have my first female mentee on Friday. And so I'm really excited about that. I love pouring into all people of color, but I love pouring back into women, right? And so it's really cool to be able to see a young graphic designer going into her own lane, just trying to pick up and absorb information, right? And so I love the fact that I'm able to do that from a place of not only nurturing from a graphic design standpoint, but nurturing from another fellow brown woman, you know, being able to sustain in that space as well. So, hey, ADP List. But anyway, I love this conversation. I love where this is going. I just had like kind of follow up. So, like when we talk about creating safe and inclusive spaces for sharing personal stories and experiences, how do we do that, especially if it's sensitive areas like women's health? Even is it more of a tribunal circle, we all get together? Like, are we doing a fire pit? Is it like, you know, wine and fire for a while? Like how what is safe? And I think it depends on the person, right, and the type of things that you want to discuss. But yeah, just kind of thinking out loud, like how do we create those spaces where we can share that vulnerability? No, I'm putting you on the spot.
I was gonna say I'm thinking about this. Well, in my field, it's a little bit different because there's HIPAA laws. Yay, HIPAA! We love the HIPAA hippo. But in general, like outside of like just the medical standpoint, definitely creating a safe space. So like now that I do like telephonic case management and I talk with patients and members on the phone instead of seeing them in person, I try to always make sure that they understand that, you know, I'm giving you education, I'm giving you resources, but never judgment. Like you won't get judgment from me. Like we might laugh about some things. I'll kiki it up with you and that's fine. But whatever information that I'm sharing with you, especially because a lot of times it is sensitive medical information, so whatever information you share with me or that I'm educating you about, it's never about judgment. It's just about, okay, this is what's going on. Like, it is what it is. And whatever is going on, my only job is to make sure that here are, the things that you can do about it. Here are the resources that you have. And here's like ways that you can go about it. You don't have to, but I'm always give people options. So like letting them know that, hey, sometimes, a lot of times I'll share personal stories like, hey, you're having trouble with breastfeeding. Totally understand that. Like, as someone who has relatively new babies, like was just, going through that just a few months ago. For people who are, pregnant and having, issues like with mental health, things like that. Outside of giving them resources, I like started off with saying, there's no shame in needing help. There's no shame in admitting that, things are overwhelming or that you're having trouble coping. So just kind of, even in real life, like outside of those things with my friends, just letting them know, like, well, with my friends, it's a little different because I'll tell them like, hey, I'm judging you, but it's okay because I still love you. And I might judge you. We might laugh about this and I might make fun of you later, but we're going to get through this. And at the end of the day, it's not real judgment. It's just, me being who I am. But, letting them know that it is a safe space and that there's basically nothing that's too dumb or too weird or too whatever to be told, and that whatever information they divulge, whatever they share, won't leave the circle, won't leave the area, won't leave the people who you're discussing it with. But I think being vulnerable, you have to share like your own life experiences, like we kind of touched on before. In women's health, like it's literally your outside of our transgender patients, you are a woman your whole life, so you experience that whole gamut and spectrum of womanhood, from periods to medical diagnoses, PCOS, endometriosis, infertility, infant loss, child loss of any sort. You may get reproductive cancers, reproductive infections. Like, there's so many things that happen in our lifespan as women in general, like specifically for women's health. And that basically just letting someone know that it's okay to be at whatever stage you are. We're here to support you through that stage, to that stage. And then again, just making it known that they're not alone. So being vulnerable, telling people your own story. And again, that's not to overshadow what someone else may be going through. Like, hey, I don't know exactly what that looks like or how that feels, but I went through this. And when I went through it, I felt this way. So you're telling me you feel this way. I can understand it because I'm coming from this point of view. But just keeping it personal, like to yourself, and making sure that you're not overshadowing someone else's story, but then keeping it a safe space for that person to talk about their feelings and talk about, whatever their situation is as well.
I love that. And I want to really emphasize the safe spaces because, again, in medical, it's a little bit different. And thank God for HIPAA and all the things. And I think that's really important that, we talk about creating safe spaces. What does that look like? That it has so many different dimensions, so many different variations. But being able to be vulnerable with someone, I think, is the key asset. Being able to share vulnerabilities is a key asset in the spectrum of creating a sisterhood. Um, I definitely can have plenty of stories. Hold on, I got a cough. Definitely had several instances in my life where I have been a part of a sisterhood that kind of fell apart, right? I've been a part of Yaya's that didn't last. And that was mostly due to the level of vulnerability, right? How much we're willing to share with each other over a space or continuum of time. And so I know probably people are like, "What, Danielle? That's not," but I'm like, "Yeah, like that does happen, and that's okay. What starts now isn't always going to be forever, right? Knowing when good spaces are best for you is also a great way to continue to grow good yayas and grow sisterhood in a way that's beneficial and fruitful for you. I've been in situations where I'm constantly giving and never receiving, right? We've all been in those type of spaces and places where we feel like we're emptying ourselves, but we never truly feel filled in some areas. And so we have to make that mental choice in our hearts and our minds whether to stay in that place or not, or bring it up and contend, fight for it, or let it go. Right. So those are the things, factors that I'm also thinking about when you're talking, Cicely, about the spectrum of what that could look like and what that meeting people where they are with your own personal stories. And I think that's the heart of it for me, is sharing personal stories. I have not done a lot of that lately, but I'm starting to get back in the rhythm of doing that more. And I think mentorship is helping me being a mentor to other people. allows me to like recollect all those thoughts too, so that I can use them as examples and purposeful ways to help other people feel comfortable in their skin or even get ahead with life skills, etc. In the design and creative industry. Priscilla, you got thoughts?
Do I have thoughts? Do I have thoughts? Hold on a second. Now, I was thinking about, when you're in a certain, like maybe you just joined some generic, chess club. I can't say chess because I don't know anything about chess club. Okay, let's say you join some woman club, right? And you end up being like, oh, it's women and they're all married. Or, okay, no, this is, sorry, backtrack. Rewind this a little bit. But I'm thinking about like when we had mommy groups, right? When I was in a mommy group, when little Zozo was littler, I joined a mom group because I'm like, I need to meet other people that are my type. But then I realized that some of the people were a little bit more granola than I am, or they realized whatever. So sometimes you have to get into that, overall encompassing group to find out who in there are going to be different people in there. And I'm like, okay, I realize that these people, although overall, yes, we are all mothers, maybe I don't relate to them as well. And I find my other people, but it's like, you can't really find your place until you have to step into some place to find it. Or like if we're, and a lot of times you might outgrow it. You might join something and a certain topic or a certain area of that overall thing starts to become a stronger thing. Like maybe you're not so political, and the group in which you've done, they've started being more political, and then you're kind of start feeling yourself having to inch out. And then it's scary because then you got to go back and find another group, and that might take you a while. But it is sharing your story. And sometimes if you're more personal with yours, then there's always going to be someone out somewhere that is just like, that is my story and I never wanted to talk about it. Or where I'm in a place, I kind of like, there is something in which I'd like to talk about, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it yet. So I've got to think of a creative way to kind of, hopefully people will get it, or whatever. And then as you find other people that are more like you, then you'll become more comfortable and you'll be okay talking to it. But it is hard to find that safe space at first. And you might have to find just something that sort of fits you. And then you never know, there might be somebody else in there, and then you guys can break off into a little thing. But yeah, it's just getting out there and finding something that sort of, and then find out, no, that ain't it, or absolutely this is it, this is the best thing. Because I know there are so many things like how Danielle and I eventually met, like when I was in Kentucky before, I didn't feel like I belonged, I couldn't find anything, and then I just was like, oh, I'll just get into this meetup thing. What was it? It was Brittany. That's how I met Brittany.
Yes.
And I was like, I am not a tech person, right? And I was like,
shout out to digital media. Yes.
Yeah, that's a digital. And I was like, okay, I'm sort of digital. I know how to use a computer or whatever. And I got in there and it turned out to be something great. And then looking at that small little thing that I joined how many years ago, 2009, something like that. And then here we are now, here I am connected to you two. And I never would have found you guys had I not gone to that thing that I was kind of really apprehensive about and found someone who connected me to you guys.
I love this.
You. Oh my gosh, Brittany, thanks.
I was about to say, shout out. We can't shout out Brittany. Brittany, we miss you, girl. This is so a full circle though. I think it goes right back to, how do you find your tribe? It's by going out and doing things. From the book of Sicily, you can't grow if you don't go, right? Right? Like that is, I'm gonna be quoting that forever because I think that it prompts me. But I think it helps others prompt too. Like you can't, you never know what's on the other side until you do it. So do it. Going back to that Nike commercial of just was it do it anyway or just do it, not just do it. Oh my gosh. But there's a women's campaign that just win. So win campaign for Women's History Month. Nike did this campaign of receipts and the list of receipts for all these amazing athletes. They even included Doechii in there, which I thought was really cool. And the receipts are long, right? And they keep telling you, you can't. So just do it. So just do it anyway. You can just do it anyway. Just win. So I love that kind of mentality And I think that also helps prompt more opportunities for us to connect with other women and connect with other communities that's like-minded, or not like-minded. Just the fact that we're just doing it. We can. We can. That's really the bottom line, ladies. We can. Not the fact that you will, but that you can. And that should be a prompting enough for us to try. Right?
It's like you got to be
Um,
curious enough. I think you have to be curious enough.
yeah. I love that.
It
Be
don't always, it
curious
don't
enough.
always kill. It doesn't always kill the cat.
You're right about that. Sometimes the cat just gets hurt. That's it. It does not.
That's the cat's fault.
9 lives. 9 lives. I love it. Okay, so kind of moving on to our last topic, which focuses on, second to last topic, building inclusive digital spaces. What are some specific strategies or design considerations for building inclusive digital spaces? And that sounds a little wordy, but really what I'm asking is, you know, once we're in these groups, right? What are some strategies that we can use to be inclusive? How can we amplify other voices? How can we ensure these spaces continue to be safe, right? We enter these spaces, hi, we've got our name badge on, we're networking, it's my first time, be gentle, like that kind of feel. But once we get past that point, what are the other steps that we need to take to kind of secure the bag, if you will, to know who those people are in our spaces? And for me, that's, again, I'm the ask questions. And I use a lot of nerd references to kind of filter out for me who are the people in the room that get me. So I use a lot of context clues. I intentionally show up in a comic shirt. I intentionally show up in my colors, my best self, my attitude, my diction, my words, my vocabulary. I want it all to be out there so that my people find me easiest. And I think that's really important when we're talking about building sisterhood that's reflective of who we are and reflect, or at least in a place where we feel more interconnected. Because not everybody's going to be everybody's person, right? We talk about that. But I think that's a huge part to keep in mind when we talk about building sisterhood and it being reflective of all people. So that's something to consider. But how do you guys think about this question? Specific strategies or considerations for building inclusive spaces like this one?
I think it's funny though, because I was thinking of when I look for, I wrote down observe. That's kind of what I do first, is like I look around and I go, well, that don't, and it's kind of hard because, I like to say we don't judge really by the whatever, but you can tell kind of if we were somewhere, right, and Danielle walked over, I was like, well, okay, I could tell that's like kind of my person. It's kind of like my person. But then you also, I think like I may notice that if I mean, I don't do networking too much really, but I know in situations I've seen people that may look like, I feel very uncomfortable being in network situations. And I've appreciated when somebody comes up to me and talks, because I might not feel comfortable doing that. It depends on the vibe of the place. And then I know that obviously if I'm in a business networking thing, I like really small, whatever. But if I'm a room full of children, I think it depends on where the space is. It depends on what space. Like if I've gone to design, like groups or whatever before, thinking I might be able to, oh, these are my people. I go in there, I'm in the Danielle thing, I'm all dressed up to my nines, and I'm like, look at me, I'm creative. And I go there and I just stay in the corner, because I just can't, but then that's why I always try to bring a +1 with me. So I don't feel like I'm like just standing there, a wallflower, being like at the high school dance just by myself at the punch bowl.
Yeah,
But
that's a great strategy, Priscilla.
Sometimes that's not bad.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, actually. Don't do it alone. We
Yeah.
talk about being inclusive in digital spaces. So bringing a +1, into the room, into the digital room, making sure that there's always an extra something that you can lean on as a reference, whether it be a person, place, or thing, to kind of curate. Maybe you have like 3 talking points that you kind of want to that leads into a personal story. Things along those lines are all great ways. They're good strategies to kind of help foster more deeper conversation that amplify other women's voices, right? I'm thinking about Even this podcast, great example. I feel like this is a great way where people can listen, they can tune in, they can comment, they can actually, respond back to us on socials. They have different ways to communicate and reach us. So I think that's also a great strategy, is not being in just one spot, but being accessible, so that other people can connect with you too. Maybe they're too not approachable in the moment, but they want to approach you later, right? It was an afterthought or something that you said at the end that really kind of fostered a prompting for you to reach out and talk or communicate with other people. And so that's something too to think about, just being accessible in that way.
I used to do is when I first came to Columbus and it was a woman panel, like they have entrepreneurs and stuff. And I was kind of starting to think like, oh, I might want to be in that place. But I may have raised my hand to make a comment, but again, it was like full of these women. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. But what I did later on is on my own space is I contacted every panel person separately. I reached out to them and go, hey, I was at your thing. Because for me, I prefer one-on-one. And that might be something like for people, just make sure you're always letting people know, hey, reach out to me individual. If you don't reach me here, then, I'm always available here and there. So, I mean, I think that is nice to also consider the people that may have issues like walking, like my daughter is kind of petrified of like being in play groups and stuff, but one-on-one she's wonderful, or me even like one-on-one I'm fine, but if I am in a group I just can't. There's we have to, I think, be also sensitive about those people, right?
Yeah, right on. I love that. Okay, y'all, we are wrapping up toward the end of this, but we have a practical tools and resources for sisterhood. What are some existing digital tools or resources that have effectively fostered some level of Yaya sisterhood in your fields? Um, is there certain tools or certain groups? Is there a resource that's really helped you foster as or feel a part of a sisterhood?
Octane, More Than Graphics podcast.
Yes.
I knew she was gonna go there.
In that order.
Okay, I was thinking like, okay, so I think about podcasting. I'm also in that same realm. I'm thinking about the different women in podcasting. That's another group right now existing. We're a part of that group. I love Jennifer Hensel. She's amazing. She leads Women in Podcasting group, the Women in Podcasting Awards. Like being a part of that is such a huge asset to me, both from a resource perspective, but also from just a womanhood perspective. Many of the women in that group are in very similar places and spaces as us. They're just trying to grow in whatever way that they can, grow by contacts, grow by resources, grow by education. So I do love. Shout out to Women's Podcasters Group. Jennifer Hensel, you're amazing. And we can't wait to have you on the podcast later in this year. So that's another cool place. I think it's Abney and Co., formerly Women of Color Podcasters Group. Well, we have been a part of that community for a long time. I personally love this because I identify so much as a woman of color, and these are all women of color podcasters from every shade and every walk of life. And I think that's so embracive to me. When people ask questions like, what tools are you using to edit your podcast, to I'm having a hard time getting visibility. What else can I do? They host webinars on a monthly basis, things along those lines. I'm happy to put those in the show notes for this episode that goes out so more people can know about these groups. But those are some ways that I feel like I'm closer to a sisterhood digitally, because these resources in these spaces exist. So that's just one way I think about it. And then I think overall sisterhood, like being able to text you guys one-on-one, or being able to reach out to the group and be like, y'all, this outfit is a bust or what? Things along those lines. There's just different ways that, you can go about this, but I just love seeing where the future of sisterhood is going toward, which is our last question of the show. Our challenge question is, where do you see the future of digital sisterhood heading?
Ooh. I think like it's heading in the direction, like just from what I've seen from, let's say, when I started college to now, So like back then there was still the MySpaces and the AOL instant messengers to get people together and, you know, to get people rallied together. I think it was just like, it was 2006 when I started college, and it was like for the first time to get my bachelor's degree. So it was just starting to like have people really meet up digitally and like get out of the group chat. Like that was like kind of the beginning of that. Like you still were meeting enough people in person, but then you also still had like a little small community online. So for me, like kind of starting in the AIM days and the MySpace days and Black Planet and Mi Gente and all the
She
old
said
school
Black
things
Planet.
that nobody knows about anymore. I think starting from those things to like now we have TikTok and all sorts of things. Like we were mentioning, like in the digital space, how we've met people. I've met friends from like Facebook groups that like people, there's still a girl like I've never met in person. We've talked on the phone, we've FaceTimed, we've, you know, I know about her life, she knows about mine. And we are still just like rooting for each other on the sidelines. It's just, it's happened where our paths just have not had the chance to cross yet, but she's amazing. She's awesome. But it's one of those things where like we, I feel like people, older millennials are out of the group chat already. Like we're engaged enough with people that, you know, we know how to talk face to face, even though if we prefer it one-on-one. But then I think that the digital space is helping the younger people really have those communities, because they may not have it, like where COVID happened at a weird time. Like for Liam, it was like the end of elementary school into middle school. So that's like a really formative time when you should be developing some really good face-to-face relationships, but can't be doing it when you're on the computer. So I think I see the digital space heading in a direction where I know that there's crazy things happening on the internet, but I still feel that like things like TikTok, and then ways where people can, I mean, maybe it may not be TikTok as we know it now, it might be a different iteration. I mean, it will be in 5 or 10 years, but it'll be more interactive where like maybe you can FaceTime instead of like privately chatting. You can like get on a call with someone and like actually see them face to face and become friends that way. But I just see it evolving in a way that there's more collaboration and direct like face-to-face communication, because, you know, we talked about, you know, it's kind of the nature of the feminine essence. We love that collaboration. We love, you know, to be face-to-face and be involved. So I see it just headed in that direction. So TikTok and Facebook and MySpace and all those things, all the predecessors will be kind of combined into some mega, you know, mega group chat sort of app where everyone can get information, share information, and still kind of be off in these different little groups as well.
I'm gonna be petty and say it won't be Signal.
I can't with you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. That was hilarious.
You said well.
I love where this is going. Sorry, I got laughed. That's hilarious. I love where this is going. I absolutely love that the future of sisterhood really is taking on this spearheaded conversation where we're picking up each other and we're going, right? Like no matter what, kind of like the ride or die in the 90s when you would go for that neighborhood ride in whatever vehicle car and you're blasting your 90s rap and you're a ride or die. Like this is my girl, I'm in the car, we gone. And I feel like that's kind of that nostalgic feeling that kind of comes back. To me, when I think about the future of digital sisterhood, it is accountability, it is showing up, but it is also like the follow up, like you're mentioning, Cicely, in a lot of areas where we're not only meeting up, but we're also being more intuitive and being more intentional about showing up and being there. So I love that. And that's going to happen in a different range, right? I feel like it'll happen in the text message, it'll happen in the group chats, it'll happen more on social media, whatever the new social media may be. And I think it's just really important for us as women to keep that in mind, that where we are now is not where we're going to be. And that applies so much harder, as we know, especially for women in tech and women in medical fields. We know what was yesterday's tech is not today's tech. And it's ever evolving, and the turnaround is quick and fast. And so I think just keeping up with being present is a great way that we're going to see the future of Yaya really grow. All right, Priscilla, go ahead, throw it down.
I'm gonna throw it down. Okay. So the future of, well, you know, I always like to talk about the pre-digital stuff. And what I'm kind of hoping for is that the future of the digital makes everybody miss more. That, you know, I mean, we're so online and it's like, don't you just miss like, hey friend, in person? You know, Nice to see you. It's kind of like what you're saying, Cicely. The three of us, well, you two knew each other, but me and the two of you hadn't known each other forever. And then when we finally met, like, what was it No, it was 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, that moment when it was happening. I mean, I was feeling like, Willy Wonka in Chocolate Factory, like, I got the golden ticket and I'm going to see you guys. And it's such that when I saw you guys, and it's always so weird when you know somebody digitally forever, and then when you see them in person, some of it is like, no big deal. I see you all the time, not realizing, I don't know what you smell like. Oh, is that what you smell like? I thought you smelled like strawberries or something like that, right? But the thing, the longer that we stay on the digital, I feel like it kind of takes away that specialness, and that's what makes me kind of feel a little bit, oh, I mean, we need to have the digital, obviously, but there's something that, that missing thing that digital will never be able to touch. As much information and everything that we can gather from it, it's like all those robots, like Wall-E, or any of those movies that we've seen. It's like those robots, they don't know how, feeling is not something that we can get off of digital. And that's what I'm hoping for. And that's why I feel like it's great as women, we have that innate feeling inside of us, and that's just nature for us, nurturing and everything. And despite no matter how much of digital happens, that is already part of us and which won't ever leave. But it's just, hoping that I'm thinking of the people that are, like I'm seeing my daughter grow up in this digital thing. I'm like, you have no idea what it's like to get a note in the mailbox. That thing that's outside in the yard, you get a letter from somebody and you open it and you read cursive. It's like these type of things that you're like, you don't have that. They don't have, I feel kind of bad a little bit for them because they don't have those things that to me made my life so special. It's like digital. I got a lot of great things from digital. I learned lots of things. My brain is so smart, but the things that really stick to me are the things that happen to the heart. And I don't think you can get that. Digital is great. That's how I met my spooner, right? You have those things, but then at some point the digital has to be put down, in order to continue, like as far as in sisterhood. We can't just remain sisters digitally, right? At some level, you have to be able to have that connection, because that is what we say sisterhood is. And you can't have connection just internet, because what happens when the internet goes down, as we know?
Right? Exactly. Hashtag the grid. All right. So I I love this. I love this though. This is so true. Like, I feel like the intentionality of sisterhood really is the connection that we have, and that connection can't always be digital. And I think we as women, obviously, we thrive harder on the physical, we thrive harder on the socio emotional. So, what better place to do that, and what stronger way to create that than physically being in the same spot? So, yeah, I'm right with you. So now that we got cars, we need to be doing maybe some quarterly dinners and just sit down and put the camera in the middle and let it spin around for a while. So I'm down with that. I feel like that. If anything, I'm feeling prompted right now to like we gotta go to Ohio now. So we gotta figure that out.
No
But
milk duds. No milk duds. Nobody bring anything that's going to harm my teeth. I'm going off of pudding.
because the last time that we got together, she chipped her tooth on candy. Noted. Okay. Noted. I won't bring no more. But I do love this conversation has been so fruitful. Ladies, is there anything else you want to say to wrap this up?
Yeah. Maybe we need to come up with a jingle or something. Let's write a song.
Only
a theme song, right?
I was about to say, I was like, only Priscilla.
Danielle, I'm working on my bass. I'm working on learning how to pick it up since surgery. I'm learning on my bass again. So
look at you.
I love that.
New woman.
And don't be too impressed. I'm not any further. I'm worse off than I was when I started years ago.
But that's because you've been out of practice. That's okay. You're still better than the person who hasn't started. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it on here sometime.
When you need to serenade us.
Yes, that's so dope.
Me.
She's in her Lizzo era, y'all. She's coming back. She's coming back.
It.
All right, y'all. This has been an incredible episode. I really hope that you've gotten something fruitful from this. We really encourage you to tune in to future episodes and for exclusive bonus content like this. You can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting us at mtgthepodcast.com. Check out all the previous guests that we've had also on our website at mtgthepodcast.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook by following the hashtag MTG the podcast. So until we meet again, we're reminding you that you are more than the work you produce. You are more than your name badge, and you are most definitely, without question, more than graphics. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
Bye.
This tribe with a vibe needs you. Share MTG on social media, on your lunch break with peers, or send an episode to your techie bestie. This podcast is produced by Octane Design Studios. Catch you next time.